Okay, thank you very much. And if there are any Rotarians, fellow retractors, and guests on the call, it's exactly 6:34, and the meeting is officially called to order. Welcome to tonight's meeting. It's a joint meeting between the Rotary Club of Accra-Labone and the Rotary Club of Accra Usu-Ari. Tonight we have retractor Emmanuella Selasi Hormeno to speak on the topic Unveiling Diabetes, Symptoms, Types, Myths, and Real Life Stories. Right. So we'll commence the meeting with the Ghana National Anthem to be sung by guest Brenda of Accra-Labone. So guest Brenda, you have the floor. Kindly lead us in the national anthem.
Okay. God bless our homeland, God. Make our nation great and strong, bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right to humility. Make us cherish fearless honesty and help us to resist oppressors rule with all our will and might forevermore. And help us to resist oppressors rule with all our will and might forevermore.
Thank you very much, guest Brenda. That was lovely. We'll take the Rucha prayer song by P. Agnes Accra Usuari.
Thank you, RP. Fellow retractors and guests on the call. Please let's all unmute our mic and then sing to them and say what the retract prayer is. Please, am I audible?
Yeah, very audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Inspire retractors, Lord, we ask. Ready, go. Inspire retractors, Lord, we ask to leave as we profess to dignify the great for fellowship which here we share, we offer
thanks to thee.
We pray that it will be our care to spread it among yours. Amen. Thank you, RP.
Thank you very much, P. Yeah, thank you very much, P. Agnes. We'll take the 4-week test. We'll test some. Amwa will lead us in that.
Thank you, RP. Good evening to all fellow partners in service and all guests on the call. So the 4-week test of the things we think, say, and do. Number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendship? Number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? May we all live by this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll surely abide by the 4-week test in our daily dealing. We'll take one fellowship song. P. Agnes.
Thank you, RP. So please let's all open to our songbook. Song number 39, page 33. Song number 39, page 33. Darling Clementine. We'll sing the first, the second, and then the last stanza. Please, are we there? Song number 39, page 33. In the carving and the carrion. Ready, go. In the carving and the carrion. Please, am I audible?
Waiting for a while.
Daughter Mina 49 and his daughter Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my
Oh my
darling, oh my darling
Clementine,
Clementine. You are lost and
lost
gone
and gone
forever.
forever
Dreadful
into sorrow.
story, Clementine, like she was and like a fairy, and her shoes were number 9. Herring boxes with autopsies, sandals were for Clementine. Oh, oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine. You are lost and gone forever. Dreadful story, Clementine. This is the last stanza. How I missed her, how I missed her, how I missed my Clementine. But I kissed a little sister. I forget my Clementine. Oh, oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine. You are lost and gone forever. Dreadful sorrow, Clementine. Thank you, RP.
Thank you very much, P. Agnes. Okay, we'll move on straight to apologies and announcements.
Everybody, we're gonna do this, or we just gonna talk about it?
Apologies and announcements. Kindly raise your hand if you have one, and I will call you to speak. Okay, Retractor Emisa.
Thank you very much, RP. Good evening, fellow partners in service. Um, so I'm here to bring an announcement for next week meeting, which is supposed to be a cluster meeting for cluster E. It's going to be a physical meeting, and we are inviting each and every one, both in and out of the cluster, to be able to fellowship with us. The physical meeting, which is going to be held at the Army's Officers Mess, opposite the 37 Military Hospital. Um, it is going to be, the time is going to be 6:30 p.m. and it's going to be on the Friday, so next week Friday on the 22nd of November. We are asking each and everyone to fellowship with us, even if you are in or you are not in the cluster, or your club is part of the cluster or not. We look forward for meeting you. We have nice raffle prizes coming up, so please do want to show up. Thank you.
Thank you, Retractor Emisa. RP Namomo.
Thank you, RP. Pictures from Richard Club of Regional Maritime Grade T. Also on 22nd November that year, we'll be having our handing over and induction ceremony, and we invite everyone to come on board. And so
Thank you very much,
thank you.
RP.
RP, Lady, please, the venue. I didn't get that.
At the Regional Maritime Grade T campus, Transport Department. Thank you.
And
Oh,
the time.
4:30 for 5. Yeah.
Okay, well noted. Any announcements from Usuari? Okay, we'll move on straight to the object of Rotary, and we'll invite Retractor Monica Usuari to lead us.
Thank you, RP. Good evening again. Fellow retractors and guests on the call, kindly let's listen to the object of Rotary. The object of Rotary is to encourage and foster the ideal of service as a basis of worthy enterprise, and in particular to encourage and foster, first, the development of acquaintance as an opportunity for service. Second, high ethical standards in business and professions, the recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations, and the dignifying of each Rotarian's occupation as an opportunity to serve society. Third, the application of the ideal of service in each Rotarian's personal, business, and community life. Fourth, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship of business and professional persons united in the ideal of service. Thank you, RP.
Thank you very much, Retractor Monica. That was beautiful. Before we introduce the speaker, let's take one fellowship song. Song mistress, P. Agnes.
Hey, RP. Okay, so song number 31, page 28, Row Your Boat. Song number 31, sorry, page 28. Row, row, row your boat. Ready? Let's go. Row, row, row your boat. Gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is about a dream. Please, let's go again. Row, row, row your boat. Gently down the stream. Merrily, merrily,
Merrily, merrily.
life is about a dream. Thank you, RP.
Thank you, P. Agnes. That was very short.
What, you need another one?
No, it's fine. We'll move on straight to the introduction of our speaker, and it will be done by Retractor Carol, Accra-Labone.
Thank you, RP. Good evening, partners in service. Am I audible?
Very audible.
All right. Our guest speaker for tonight is Emmanuella Selasi Hormeno, a dedicated advocate for diabetes and adolescent health, a committed retractor, and the General Secretary of Diabetes Youth Care, an NGO. Having lived with diabetes for the past 3 years, she is passionate about raising awareness and combating the stigma surrounding the condition. Her first-hand experiences with the mental and physical toll of diabetes misconceptions have reinforced her determination to dispel myths and work toward preventing a rising diabetes pandemic in the country. Let us all welcome our guest speaker, Retractor Emmanuella. Thank you, RP.
Hello, everyone. Please, can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. So I am Emmanuella Selasi, as has already been introduced. And before Retractor Emmanuel, please, could you help me wearing the slides for the presentation?
Okay. Please give me a minute. Let me get it on my PC. Okay, I'm doing
Yes,
this
please.
Okay, so while we wait for Retractor Emisa to organize the slide, I want to remind all partners in service to kindly fill the attendance form in the chat
I'm
section.
just sharing my phone. Just-
Okay, great. The slide is up and ready. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I will be speaking on diabetes today, and the topic for today's speech is unveiling diabetes symptoms, types, myths, and stories. So whilst I am explaining what diabetes is, I'm going to use my life experience as an example to help us understand what the condition is and everything associated or related to it. Right. So first of all, what misconception we have is the fact that diabetes is a disease caused by sugar, and it's something I am going to be dealing with subsequently in my speech. But then diabetes is a chronic condition. Okay, great. Diabetes is a chronic condition that occurs when the pancreas does not produce enough insulin, or when the body cannot effectively use insulin it produces. So this means that there is excess glucose or sugar in your body, and that causes diabetes. As individuals, everybody needs sugar or glucose to be able to live, because that is what your body uses as energy, right? So it means that from the food you eat, be it rice, drink, anything you take, contains carbohydrates and sugars. And your body uses that to have energy to function properly. So diabetes occurs when the hormone called insulin, one, is not either produced or it is not effectively working well. What this means is that insulin is a hormone that allows your body to absorb sugars for energy. So you can imagine it as a door that is being locked, and insulin is the key that opens the door for the sugars to enter into your organs for you to be able to function properly as an individual, right? So basically, that is what diabetes is, and that is the simple mechanization behind how your body uses the sugars in your body and what exactly causes diabetes. Next slide. So there are multiple types of diabetes, and there are type 1 diabetes, type 2 gestational diabetes, type 3C diabetes, Moody and ladder. And type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes are the common types of diabetes that we have, and the others are rare types of diabetes. So in this slide, I'm going to focus much more on the common types of diabetes. I am going to touch a bit on the rare types, but not so much on it. So next slide. One diabetes is also known as insulin-dependent or juvenile diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition that is characterized by insulin-deficient production and requires daily insulin administration. And it mostly affects children. That is why it is called juvenile diabetes. But then the characteristic of type 1 diabetes is the fact that it's an autoimmune disease. So when we say something is an autoimmune disease, it means that your immune system attacks the healthy cells in your body, mistaking them for either viruses or bacteria and killing them off, right? So with type 1 diabetes, your immune system kills the beta cells in your pancreas that is responsible for producing insulin. And when that happens, you are unable to produce insulin, and that is how you get diabetes. It usually affects children, but then it also affects adults as well. What we also need to know is that 90% of those with type 1 diabetes don't have any family history of it. So it does not necessarily mean that if somebody in your family has diabetes, there is a guarantee that you would get diabetes. It doesn't work that way. Next slide, please. So type 2 diabetes is also known as a lifestyle disease. The reason why it is known as a lifestyle disease is that it is caused by sedentary lifestyle. So when I say sedentary lifestyle, I mean when you are inactive, you don't exercise, you eat a lot of unhealthy food, you eat very late at night. All these things are what contributes to what we call a sedentary lifestyle. So what this means is that it affects how your body uses glucose for energy and stops the body from using insulin properly. That is insulin resistance. So what this means is that even though your pancreas is able to produce insulin, your body cannot effectively use it. So here, people with type 2 diabetes usually take medications to help their pancreas to be able to produce the insulin and for the body to effectively use that insulin. So usually when we say insulin resistance, it is characterized by the fact that your body is unable to absorb the insulin as it is supposed to. And it is usually when there is a buildup of visceral fat in your body. Because when there is excess fat in your body, it prevents your body from being able to absorb the insulin in that regard. So type 2 diabetes usually affects older people, so people 45 years and above. But we do have children and teenagers who equally also have type 2 diabetes. So who equally also have type 2 diabetes. Next slide, please. So gestational diabetes. Gestational diabetes happens during pregnancy and is characterized by high blood sugars above the normal range, but below figures for the diabetic diagnosis. So what this means is that during gestational, like during pregnancy, gestation, women might begin to experience high blood sugars midway through their period, usually between the 24th week going, right? And this is actually something that occurs during pregnancy. And after your pregnancy is done, it goes away with it. But then what this means is that there might be complications during the pregnancy as well. And then the children who are born from mothers who had gestational diabetes have a higher risk of type 2 diabetes later on in life if you are not careful enough. Next slide, please. So the rare types of diabetes, MODY, maturity onset diabetes of the young, and it occurs before the age of 25 years. We have LADA. LADA is autoimmune diabetes of adulthood, and it is type 1 diabetes, but that occurs in adulthood because usually the conception is that type 1 diabetes affects children. So when you're an adult and you do get type 1 diabetes, you are most likely going to be diagnosed with LADA. Type 3C is actually pancreatogenic diabetes that occurs when the pancreas is damaged. And conditions such as chronic pancreatitis, cystic fibrosis, and pancreatic cancer could actually cause you to get type 3C. This is because usually the pancreas is removed during surgery to be able to deal with this type of condition. And when you no longer have the pancreas, you no longer have the organ that is able to produce insulin for you to be able to use. So all these are types of diabetes that exist. There are equally more types of diabetes, but these are the ones that are commonly known, even for the rare ones as well. Next slide. So symptoms of diabetes, it's usually associated with extreme thirst, frequent urination, extreme hunger, unintentional weight loss, fatigue, blurry vision, recurrent or slow healing wounds. And if you are unaware of diabetes and the symptoms, it is something that can easily pass over you. So I'm going to give an example with myself and how it took a long time for me to realize I had diabetes. So I was experiencing most of these symptoms with the extreme thirst, the frequent urination, hunger, unexplained weight loss, fatigue. But then it was also during exam period. So I equally just associated it with exam stress and that, oh, after exams, I would be fine. So I never really sought any medical help. It was later on after I had severe symptoms where I had like full body bacterial infection where I started vomiting blood that I had to be rushed to the hospital. And even with that, they were just treating me for the infections that occurred. And even after the treatment of the infections, I still kept having infections over and over again. And it had to be one nurse who randomly checked my blood sugars one time and realized that they were extremely high. So for normal people or non-diabetics, your blood sugars are supposed to be between 3.9 and then a 4.9, 3.9 and 6.9 for your fasting blood sugars. So when I say fasting blood sugars, I mean in the morning when you wake up, before you eat breakfast or anything like that, because you slept throughout the night. So when it's over 8 hours and you haven't eaten, it is considered fasting blood sugar, and it's supposed to be between that range. But if you've eaten, your sugars are supposed to not be more than 8.9. So if they are more than 8.9, it is a telling that something is wrong somewhere. Personally, my blood sugars were at a 27, and that is extremely high. So that is when they started checking me out and then treating me for diabetes. So I would entreat us all to have to be able to pay attention to the symptoms so that when we experience any of these symptoms, we are able to go for checkup to ensure that we are able to catch the disease on early and prevent complications. So next slide. So causes of diabetes, because we have different types of diabetes, there are causes that might interlap, but then there are also specificities with certain types. So with type 1, there is no definite cause for the type 1 diabetes, but there have been experts that have said that your genetics and environmental factors do play a role in type 1 diabetes. So what this means is that um please, is someone speaking? Can I continue?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, so usually what this means is that there is a genetic, like there are certain genes in your body that can be triggered to cause type 1 diabetes, but it is not certain because it is random and it happens it does not happen, it does not follow any particular order. So what this means is that other people might have the same genes but might not have type 1 diabetes, even though that particular gene is what is a contributing factor to you getting type 1 diabetes. So when we talk about the environmental factors, we are talking about things like viral infections, bacterial infections, psychological problems, childhood traumas. All these things contribute to you getting type 1 diabetes. And it is actually, there's an example I can give is during the COVID era. During the COVID era, the number of people that got type 1 diabetes doubled in that particular year alone, just because of the issues with the viral infections and all those things. Personally, I did get diabetes during COVID period. I had all the COVID symptoms. I had bilateral pneumonia. I had bacterial infections. I had all the symptoms you could get for COVID, but I did not get COVID. I ended up getting type 1 diabetes. So this is where environmental factors do play a role in you getting type 1 diabetes. Next slide. So the causes for type 2 diabetes are usually, because it is a lifestyle disease and it is caused by sedentary lifestyle, there are specific things that actually do increase the risk of you getting type 2 diabetes if you don't take care. So the first is being obese or overweight, having hypertension, being inactive, your age, having pre-diabetes. So pre-diabetes is telling that you are at risk of getting type 2 diabetes in the next 10 years. So usually when you have pre-diabetes is when you have high sugars, but not high enough to be diagnosed as diabetic. What this means is that you are on your way to becoming diabetic. So you need to be able to be careful about your diet, being able to exercise and all those things. So pre-diabetes is usually a warning that you might get diabetes in the next 10 years if you don't take care of yourself or if you are not active or exercising. So the other causes are PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, family history. So when you have family history of diabetes, maybe your parents, your grandparents, your siblings, somebody in your family has diabetes, the risk factors of you getting type 2 diabetes is actually very high. Your race and ethnicity also play a role. According to studies, According to studies, African and Asians have a higher risk of diabetes as opposed to Europeans and yeah, as opposed to Europeans. So what this means is that if you are African, your risk of actually getting diabetes is higher as opposed to somebody who's European. Also, the use of steroids can actually cause diabetes. So individuals who actually inject steroids are actually also at risk of diabetes. And there are certain oral contraceptives that can also cause type 2 diabetes as well. So what this means is that even as much as oral contraceptives are very good or helpful in being able to prevent pregnancy and all those things, since it deals with hormones and insulin is a hormone, it might actually cause an insulin inefficiency within your body, and that would also cause type 2 diabetes as well. So next slide. So prevention, right? First of all, type 1 diabetes cannot be prevented because there is no known way of knowing how it is caused or what exactly happens for you to get type 1 diabetes. So what this means is that there is no definite way to say that you can prevent diabetes. But what we can do is to try to prevent type 2 diabetes, since type 1 cannot be prevented. So type 2 diabetes can be prevented through the normal ways that you are told usually at the hospital. So when you go to the hospitals, you are told to eat healthy foods, exercise regularly, lose weight if you're obese, and then maintain a healthy weight. Then avoid long stresses of inactivity. So usually most of us work in the offices and are going to be sitting down all day. What this means is that you could take periodic breaks in between and then move around so that you don't have a prolonged time of not being active at all. You also need to avoid smoking and excessive alcohol, because studies have shown that if you take more than 4 glasses of alcohol a day, your likelihood of getting type 2 diabetes is up to 60%. And that is a very high percentage. Also, avoid saturated fats, because as I said initially, fats actually make it very difficult for your body to be able to use insulin efficiently. So when you take in too much saturated fats, you actually put yourself at a higher risk of gaining type 2 diabetes. So what you can do to help yourself is to practice these simple activities and help yourself by preventing it, right? Next slide. So the management of diabetes, because type 1 is insulin dependent. So when I say insulin dependent, it means that they have to be taking insulin injections every day. And usually most diabetics take 4 to 5 insulin shots every day to ensure that they can live, right? So that is what they do. And there is also constant sugar monitoring. That means that there needs to be constant regular monitoring of their blood sugars every day. So usually before you eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, you are supposed to check your sugars. 2 hours after eating, you are equally supposed to check your sugars. And that is for diabetics. So usually people check their sugars 3 to 8 times a day, depending on how they are managing their condition. Also, careful attention to diet. So when we say careful attention to diet, it does not mean that your diet is restricted or limited. People with type 1 diabetes can eat whatever food they want to eat, but then you just have to be careful and eat in moderation. What this means is different individuals react to different foods differently. So I can eat rice and be fine. Someone will eat rice and their sugars will be high. So depending on how your body reacts to the food you eat, it will actually inform your diet plan and what goes into your diet. So what this means is that diabetes can equally take sugar. I take a lot of sugar because I have chronic hypoglycemia, and I'll explain what hypoglycemia is in the subsequent slide, right? So the next thing is physical activity. It is very important that type 1 diabetics are physically active because it increases your insulin sensitivity. And when it increases your insulin sensitivity, it means your body is able to efficiently or effectively use the insulin that you are injecting into your body. Type 2 diabetics have a similar regimen with type 1, but the difference here is the fact that the weight loss is actually something that is prioritized, especially if they are obese. And secondly, diabetes medication or insulin therapy. So when I say diabetes medication, type 2 diabetics don't need to inject insulin because their pancreas can still produce insulin, but it is not working well. So the tablets that you take or the medications that you take is to help your body efficiently use the insulin. So what this means is that drugs like metformin are what type 2 diabetics use a lot. But then there are certain instances where some type 2 diabetics will need insulin for a particular period of time. So during that period, they are advised or they are put on an insulin regimen to store or to control their sugars. And that is what we call insulin therapy, basically. But then apart from these two, they basically do everything else with a healthy diet, the exercise, and the blood sugar monitoring. Next slide, please. So acute complication. First is hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia usually happens with those with type 1 diabetes, right? So when we say hypoglycemia, it's low blood sugar. It's when there is excess insulin in your body as opposed to the sugars in your body. Because remember I said that before a type 1 diabetic can eat, they will need to inject insulin. And because you are not your organ, you can't always give the accurate amount of insulin you need, especially if you have to calculate the amount of carbohydrates you are eating and all that. And with Ghanaian foods, it's very difficult to know the amount of carbohydrates you have in rice, yam, or banku, or stuff like that. So sometimes you might give yourself too much insulin. And when that happens, your blood sugar is lower. And when that happens, what you need to do is to take in sugar to raise your blood sugar. So what this means that when you have a hypoglycemia, people with type 1 diabetes usually take in sugar or drinks, anything that is a fast-acting carbohydrate to ensure that their blood sugars are raising. Because I know I said initially in my speech that normal blood sugars for non-diabetics is between a 3.9 and a 6.9 if you are having a fasting blood sugar. With diabetics, even with non-diabetics, if your sugars are below a 3.9, it means you need sugar and your body actually needs that sugar to be able to function properly. So if you don't take in something quickly, it can have severe complications on you. To the end, there are extreme complications where people die from hypoglycemia or go into a coma or faint because of that. So it's very important that type 1 diabetics always have sugar with them, glucose drinks, so that they can be able to cater for themselves when they have a hypoglycemia. A hyperglycemia is the opposite. So hyperglycemia is when your blood sugars are high, and it is equally a symptom of diabetes. But then with diabetics, if your blood sugars are high, it means that you need insulin to correct your blood sugars. So what this means is that there is too much sugars in your blood, and you need to be able to use the insulin to be able to correct it and bring it to a normal or stable level. The hypersomolar hyperglycemic state actually happens with individuals with type 2 diabetes, right? And what this means is that usually they have consistent high sugars, and it actually causes other specific complications that would occur. And they are usually put on insulin therapy to be able to correct this. And the fourth acute complication is diabetic ketoacidosis. So diabetic ketoacidosis is when your body needs energy or sugars to work, but it is not getting it. What this means is that you might have eaten and all those things, but because you don't have insulin or because your insulin is not working properly, your body is unable to absorb the sugars. So what this means is that your liver begins to break down fats in your body to your liver begins to break down fats in your body, and the byproduct of that is what we call ketones, right? So ketones are very toxic, and when they fill your bloodstream, you have diabetic ketoacidosis, right? And usually when that happens, you need to be hospitalized because it's a very serious condition where people can, like within 24 to 48 hours, their ketone levels are very high, and within a week to 2 weeks, without treatment, they die. That is how serious DKA is. So when somebody has DKA, they need to be immediately rushed to the hospital for treatment. And usually the treatment involves insulin and then normal saline. So normal saline is sodium hydroxide. Yes, I think. Yeah. So basically that is what is used in treating DKA. Next slide, please. So the chronic complications that we have, so chronic complications are complications that occur when your blood sugars have been very high for a long time. It can also occur when you've had diabetes, but you don't know. Because in Africa, 80% of people living with diabetes don't even know that they have the condition. Like how it happened with me, and I had to be rushed to the hospital later on when I experienced complications. So with the complications I experienced nerve damage, neuropathy, where I was paralyzed from my knees down for like 3 months. I couldn't walk and I was paralyzed, partially paralyzed, right? There are a lot of complications that occur. So eye problems, so things like glaucoma, cataracts, basically called retinopathy, can occur if your blood sugars are very high for a long time and it's not treated. So foot problems, right? So when we say foot problems, like diabetic sores that can occur, and we know a symptom of diabetes is slow healing wounds. Usually, when you don't treat the wounds early and you don't manage your sugars, they eat into your nerves and you would end up having to be amputated, right? Either your hand or your leg. Usually it happens with your leg, where people with diabetes end up being amputated. Another complication is heart attack and stroke. And that one also has to do with the fact that usually people with type 2 diabetes have hypertension. And all these combined together put you at a higher risk of getting a heart attack or a stroke. So if you don't manage your blood sugars well and they are very high for a long time, the likelihood of you getting a stroke or a heart attack is just a few steps away from you. Kidney problems, so nephropathy, right? So kidney problems usually happen because of things like DKA, right? So what this means is that your kidney is breaking down a lot of cells, and you might get kidney injuries. And kidney injuries actually occur because of the fact that there are excess ketones in your body. I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible. And this is where you have people having to go on dialysis and all that. Even though people think that it is only old people that might actually be on dialysis, we have kids as young as 12 years, 13 years, 20 years who are on dialysis because of diabetes. So it is that serious of a problem. The next we have is nerve damage. So something that I had bilateral foot drop where the nerves in my legs were damaged and I couldn't walk. So even till now, I still experience pains, burning sensations, and stuff like that in my legs because of the fact that I had this particular complication, even though I've gone through physiotherapy and all those things. The reason being that is that once your nerves are damaged, there is no way of bringing them back. Like you cannot cure your damaged nerves. So it is actually a permanent issue that occurs. And it is a very serious problem that we need to be able to prevent. The next is gum disease. So what people don't know is that, well, your blood flows through every part of your body. That is basically the thing. And even your teeth are no exception. So what this means is that if your blood sugars are high, they are going to affect how your teeth is able to how you're able to keep your dental hygiene well, right? So what this means is that you can be brushing your teeth and everything, but if your blood sugars are not good, you might end up with a lot of gum disease and infections that might even travel through your gums to other parts of your body, like your brain and your heart, and cause other serious complications as well. So we have other related diseases like cancer, because diabetes would increase the risk of you getting cancer. And when your blood sugars are not well controlled, it increases that particular risk as well. The next thing is on sexual problems. Yes, please. The next thing is sexual problems. So what this means is that it affects the blood flow of your blood flow at your nether regions. Yeah. And when that happens, the feeling of sexual sensations and all those things are affected. And in men, it can even go ahead to cause low sperm count and fertility issues for both men and women. So what this means is that for both men and women, it might be difficult for you to have children if you don't control your blood sugars well. And you might not be able to even have sex because it might be very painful or extremely uncomfortable, or you might not even have the feeling of like any sexual urge at all because of the fact that your blood sugars are not controlled. So next slide. So myths and misconceptions. And yes, the first is on sugar, because whenever you mention diabetes, everybody's like sugar, urea, and all that thing. I think from the previous slides, we have realized that with the causes that were listed, sugar was not listed there, right? So what this means is that eating sugar in of itself will not directly cause diabetes. What this means is that it just increases your risk of obesity. And once you are obese, your risk of getting type 2 diabetes is equally high, or you're on your way to getting diabetes. So the reason why we ask that you eat sugar in moderation is not because it directly causes diabetes, but then it just increases the risk of you getting diabetes, right? So the next is pre-diabetes is nothing to worry about. I said earlier in the presentation that pre-diabetes is an indication of high sugars, but not high enough for you to be diagnosed with diabetes. It is basically telling you that you have a high risk of developing diabetes in the next 10 years if you don't take care of yourself. So if you are diagnosed with pre-diabetes, it is basically telling you, or your body is basically warning you that if you continue in the way you are continuing, you are likely to get diabetes at the end of the day. Next slide. The next is on herbal medicines and diabetes. So at the beginning or the onset of my diagnosis, I went for, after I was discharged from the hospital, my family sent me to a different doctor for a second opinion about my condition, because everybody thought that since I don't eat sugar, I shouldn't have diabetes. And what I got, or what this particular health practitioner said, was the fact that, oh, I just need to take certain herbal medications and then I would be fine. But taking these herbal medications caused me a lot, because I ended up in a coma and I ended up having cardiac arrest, hypokalemias, anemia, a lot of things, because of the fact that I resorted to herbal medicine instead of taking insulin. So herbal medicine do not cure diabetes, because type 1 diabetes has no cure at all. Currently, type 1 diabetes has no cure, but type 2 diabetes has a reversible rate. So what this means is that if you are consistent with your management practices, the likelihood of you reverting type 2 diabetes exists, but at a 50% rate, right? So what this means is that it is not absolutely guaranteed that type 2 diabetes can be reverted. But then ultimately, if you do want to resort to herbal medications, there are licensed doctors that work in the various hospitals that actually do procure specific herbal medication, and they are FDA approved. So instead of just taking any moringa or whatever it is that you are given, it is advisable that you seek the help or as the counsel of a herbal doctor. Because I know that in KNUST, they teach herbal medicine as a course where we have like licensed herbal doctors as well. So you could go there so that in case anything happens, you have a means to be able to hold them accountable if something occurs or if there is a complication that occurs. But if you do your own concoction at home, or say, well, my grandmother believed that taking these particular herbs will help you and all that, When the complications occur, it can cost you your life if you are not careful, and it is a very serious issue that we need to be able to deal with. The third is that diabetes is not contagious, right? So what this means is that it is a non-communicable disease. It cannot be transmitted. When we say having a family history of diabetes increases the risk of diabetes, it doesn't mean that once your mother or your father or your grandmother has diabetes, you are equally going to get diabetes. What this means is that if you are careful and you follow the preventative measures well enough, you are free from getting diabetes and you wouldn't have to worry about diabetes at all. So it is not something that can be transmitted. And the last misconception I will talk about is people with diabetes should not exercise. As I said initially, exercise is very important and it is required to help regulate your blood sugar. Even when your blood sugars are high and you exercise, it helps lowers your blood sugars and brings them to a very normal level because it increases your insulin sensitivity. So what this means is that you don't even need a lot of insulin to be able to work properly. Little insulin is enough to be able for your body to be able to function properly if you are exercising. But then if you are diabetic, you need to be able to consult your endocrinologist or your dietitian, your nutritionist, before you actually go into any kind of exercise at all, because overdoing it would also have its complications as well, where you might have hypoglycemia and then the subsequent complications that would occur. Next slide. So, in conclusion, diabetes is a stressful and exhausting condition that requires constant monitoring and adjustment. Basically, doing the work of an organ to stay alive. Be mindful so as not to promote stigma against people living with diabetes. This is very important because usually when you mention diabetes, everybody's like, oh, you ate too much sugar. Oh, you should eat a little. Oh, it's because you are fat. All these things actually promote diabetes stigma, and it has a lot of psychological impact on people living with diabetes, because people living with diabetes are already dealing with a lot of things as well, because you are managing school stress, work stress, but then you also have to take account your condition as well. You also need to take into account your condition, what type of food you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, if you should exercise or not. Like, that is a lot of stress. People with diabetes make an extra 180 decisions every single day. And that is a lot to take in. So please, let's be mindful and make informed decisions or make informed speeches when we are talking about diabetes, because there have been instances where people have resorted to suicide or resorted to like letting diabetes take their lives because of the fact that their friends have laughed at them because they've had diabetes, or the fact that somebody in their area said something about them because they had diabetes and they ended up killing themselves. It's a very serious problem. Also, diabetes is a growing pandemic. It is currently an epidemic where we have over 800 million people living with diabetes. And in Ghana, it is a growing pandemic, but then it is what we call a silent killer, because unlike COVID, where everybody knew about it, with diabetes, because it is not transmitted, people are not conscious of it. So what this means is that more and more people are getting diabetes, and their number is expected to double in the next 10 to 20 years. So let us be able to protect ourselves, because our healthcare facilities are not enough to be able to cater for diabetes and the complications that come with it. And I think we've all heard about the recent dialysis issues and all those things. It is but one of the many problems we have with our healthcare system. So I am urging us all to be able to practice the preventative measures and be well aware and spread awareness on diabetes, so that we don't allow it to become a pandemic in the country and in the African region as well, where we'd be unable to deal with it. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Thank you very much. I'm honestly blown away. this is an eye opener. I personally learned a lot. I'll open the floor for questions. If you have any question, kindly raise your hand and then we call you to any question, any recommendation based on what has been presented. Any question? Okay, retractor slim sheet.
Eh, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuella Selasi. It was such a very insightful presentation. So, okay. So number one, I just wanted to ask, in terms of diabetes, number one, is it something that can be checked maybe when the child is born? Is it something we can actually check for allergies and things? People can go in for tests at a very very earlier age. So is this something that can be checked? You don't have to wait till you start receiving symptoms before you actually start knowing that you have diabetes. So is this something that can be checked earlier, like in the early stage of one's life?
Okay, thank you for that question. So with diabetes, what can we can do for like early detection and all that is regular screening and regular checkup. So I usually advise people to check their sugars at least once a week to ensure that you are on the safe side of things. But then also, if you have a family history of it, you know that there's a likelihood of you getting diabetes. So you just need to be able to be um you just need to be able to practice the preventative measures diligently so that you can help yourself in that regard. Because that is the way that it is actually being checked early on in the stages. So, as I said earlier, with pre-diabetes, right, it is an indication that you will get diabetes. So, when you have regular tests and regular screening and all those things, if you are likely to get diabetes, the results will show and will tell that you are likely to get diabetes, and you should be able to practice the preventative measures for that. But it works for only type 2 diabetes. With type 1 diabetes, because it cannot be prevented, there is no known way of like knowing whether you are going to get type 1 diabetes or not. So with that, there really isn't much you can do there. But with type 2, there is a lot you can do to help yourself. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was splendid. Retractor, Mr. Your hand is still up. Do you have another question?
Yes, sorry, I have another follow-up question. So, another question is, how easy is it to get, so now I know the diabetic patients, they use insulin. So how easy is it for one to get it? Is it something that when you just go into any pharmacy, you can easily get it, or you always have to go for some certain kind of queue or pass through some certain kind of cheats before you can actually get insulin?
Okay, so that is a very important question because access to insulin is very difficult, right? It's not because of the fact that insulin is not there, because usually when you go to the pharmacies, they are there, but it is more of the cost of insulin. So that is what makes access very difficult. Because on the NHIS, the diabetes medication that you get is metformin, and that works for type 2 diabetics. And the insulin you get is the pre-mixed insulin, that is a mixture, and that does not work for type 1 diabetics. In other countries, it is not used at all for type 1 diabetics. But in Ghana, because that is the only one on the NHIS, you have people who would actually go for it because that is the only option they have. Most insulin are between the prices of 300 to 600 cedis. And you'd have to get like 2 to 3 vials in a month. And that is a lot of money for a lot of people. So getting it is extremely difficult when it comes to cost and like with that regard to access and all that. So that is the problem that a lot of us are facing when it comes to getting insulin and also it is not so easily got yet.
Okay, thank you. Retractor Misa, does that answer your question or questions?
Uh, yes, please. It does. It does. Thank
Okay,
you.
I have one question for you, Retractor Selasi. Yes, in
Okay.
your quest to promote awareness for diabetes, what are some of the challenges you faced or currently face?
The challenges are quite a lot. The first I will talk about is understanding and comprehension because people already have the misconceptions deeply rooted in them. So when you tell them something that goes contrary to what they believe in, the likelihood of them believing you is very difficult. And it's a huge challenge because the only way other means of education or other means of awareness can go on is if the people themselves, one, want to understand the condition and want to do what is right. But that is a very huge burden, and it is a huge hurdle that has been a struggle for us to be able to go on with. The next I will talk about is on the issue of cost and all that. So there have been a lot of talks with policymakers to eat and then big pharma. So the pharmacies that are like monopolizing insulin production and all that to be able to reduce the prices of insulin so that people can afford it. And honestly, it is not really going on well because in Ghana, we have the NCD policy and it is beautifully written. But when it comes to the implementation process, it is very lacking when it comes to that particular aspect because there are a lot of things in the policy that ideally should be happening at the various hospitals, but you don't see them happening. And because people are ignorant of it, they don't even know that they are supposed to benefit from this particular policy or not. And the issue with cost is even with the insulin on the NHIS, you have to the NHIS just covers part of the payment. So people have to pay an extra 100 CDs just to get the insulin on the NHIS. So even with that, that is also another problem there. So getting the policymakers to add more insulin or the insulin that is actually efficient for because we have different types of insulin for type 1 diabetics is also a challenge because of the fact that even the one currently on it you have to still pay money to be able to get that one as well. And the other challenge I will talk about is getting partnerships or like projects that you have and all that. It's very difficult because even at the international level, where countries do make promises at the World Health Organization, they are either more focused on HIV or cancer as opposed to things like diabetes. So even at that level, getting the country heads to even want to invest in diabetes itself is a huge challenge. And because of that, getting funding is also very difficult. So even with national programs, funding from the government is something that has been a huge challenge for those at the healthcare facilities as well. So these are the major problems that
Thank you very much. Retractor Misa, your hand is up again.
Yeah. So because I really enjoy the lecture, I call it a lecture because I really enjoy lecture. I wanted to also find out. I know Retractor Selasi, you've been a retractor for a while. I know you've been trending all over UG. Um, as a diabetic patient, I know that definitely there should be sort of like an association whatsoever like that. Um, as a retractor as well, what have you done, or have you tried to get some certain kind of help, using your should I say your ability or using your connection as a retractor to see that maybe one of the projects that we do or one of the projects that the district does can kind of shed a certain kind of focus towards helping diabetic patients, because now you say insulins are quite expensive, to get 300 to 600 cedis. Have you tried to get some certain kind of connection or certain kind of help, especially maybe from the district, in which that can be like a project or something?
Yes, actually, I have. So, my club, specifically Rotary Club of the University of Ghana, when I was in school, did embark on a number of um, health campaigns and then awareness programs for diabetes specifically, to the extent where I even had a lot of retractors volunteering for the annual diabetes camp that we have. So I also volunteer for this NGO called Diabetes Youth Care. And every year we have the annual camp where it is free for all diabetics as well. And they have actually volunteered and have worked with us on those kinds of projects as well. Currently, as I'm speaking to you, I do have a project with the Richards Club of the University of Ghana happening on 23rd, and that is a three-part program. So it is basically on the discussion of non-communicable diseases in general, and then also on the education of diabetes. So our target group has been high schoolers in that regard, and we have written letters to a number of high schools. And we've actually also partnered with Interact clubs in Aquinas, Presec, and other Interact clubs as well to be able to have this particular project. And we are also going to have a diabetes screening too as well, where we have registered nurses, psychiatrists, and doctors as well being on board to actually be able to speak to the kids. And if we do get people who might be at risk of the condition, we have a registered nurse who works for this diabetes clinic at Stanford, which is free for diabetics, where we can send them over to so that they can have the right treatment at no cost at all. Yes. So that is basically the current project that we are working on, and it's going to happen next week, Saturday. But yeah, I would use this opportunity to ask for funds because we do have E-Club as well, Rotary E-Club of Ghana, also on the project, and they are also sponsoring for our medical supplies as well. But yes, we are calling for more sponsorships from the other clubs if you are interested in joining the project and all that. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. That was deep. So, Retractor Franca, your hand is up. Your final question.
Thank you, RP. Please, so I heard you mention type 2 diabetes, but I didn't hear the prevention method and the healthy lifestyle that can be put in place.
Actually, I talked about it. Yes, I talked about the prevention methods, and I did say type 1 cannot be prevented. So all the prevention methods I talked about focused on type 2. So healthy eating, regular exercising, losing weight and maintaining a healthy weight, be
Extensive presentation, which covered all the types of diabetes. So
Okay.
send the recording out, and probably you can go through and then refresh your mind on what was discussed. On this note, I would like to thank Dr. Emmanuel Selasi for availing yourself to speak on the topic and doing a good job at that. We don't have vote of thanks today because per Rotary protocols, we don't give vote of thanks to Rotary members who speak during meetings. But I will tell you this. I received 2 comments. So I received 2 comments, one from Kenya, and she says this lady is phenomenal. She deserves to speak on a world stage. This lady is phenomenal. She deserves to speak on a world stage. And the second one is I will personally sponsor her kebab for this great presentation. Kindly note that somebody is sponsoring kebabs for you after this meeting. So we would like to thank you for doing justice to the topic and then opening our eyes to what actually diabetes is all about. Thank you very much.
Thank you
All
too.
right.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, so we'll move on with the meeting. We'll have raffles. No, we'll have fines, and we'll have Protractor Slim Shade to do the fines for us. Protractor Slim Shade, you have the floor. 1 minute.
Okay, thank you very much, Contractor President JD. Yes, so tonight I am the fine master. Please, can we project or can we drop the Momo number because some people are ready to be fined apparently. Can we drop the Momo number on the screen? Oh yes, we can. So I believe we can all see the Momo number on the screen. Can we see the Momo number on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much again. Basically, I feel if you came into this meeting and you didn't fellowship with me, just donate 5 cedis. That's all. I know some people fellowship with me during the meeting. Guests are not part, but for all retractors, living by the 4-way test, if you came into this meeting and you did fellowship with me, kindly send 5 cedis to the Momo number. I want to start calling names. Retractor Andromeda, I know you didn't fellowship with me. Retractor Fafali, Retractor Nibano, P Mavis, hello. Happy Delali, thank you very much. Retractor Agi, Retractor Carol, it's in fact we are a lot. Retractor Ivy,
Hello, you are
Marie.
welcome. Yes,
Yes,
thank you for having us.
please, yes. So please kindly drop 5 cedis. I know you didn't fellowship with me this
What did you say?
in this meeting.
Retractor
I'm
Mr.
taking
You
my
can't find
fines. I
out.
know. Hey,
You are taking
no,
the
I'm not
fine.
fining her.
Are
I'm
you
not
finding
fining her. I'm
me?
only saying she did. Oh no, hey RP, I can't fine you. RP, I'm only saying she make a donation.
But I had
Please,
fine, oh.
are you calling me a liar?
I
Oh
had
no,
fine.
hey, RP,
Yes,
I can't call you a
looks
liar.
like he's calling you a liar.
Hey,
So wait, you are doing what? What are you doing? You are doing fine. And you said
Yes,
anybody who
I'm
didn't
doing fine.
fellowship with you, anyone who didn't fellowship
I was
with
saying
you should pay 5 cedis.
yes,
And you
please.
mentioned
Yes,
RP Delali.
please. I was saying hi
yes.
to
So
her.
are you
RP Delali,
challenging
hi.
me? Are you
No,
challenging me
please.
that you didn't say that?
Hey, RP, I can't challenge you.
Alfie,
Okay,
what are you
proceed.
waiting for? Please find him for me.
RP, please, I can't challenge you, not at all. How will I
Please
do that?
finish your
How can I do that?
fines. Finish your fines. You have
Yes,
less than
please.
30 seconds.
All right. So please, kindly donate kindly send
Okay.
5 cedis. If you know you didn't fellowship with me when you came on the call, please do that. Oh, there's a contact number on the screen. 055 Projector Clive. This is one. The contact number is on the screen. 055 661 6183. Please, let's try to
Please,
live by the four waiters.
please, what is it
RP.
for? Sir.
Oh, when you came online now, you didn't fellowship with me, so
Oh,
Retractor
sure.
Matilda, Retractor Tilly, please
Yes,
kindly pay 5 cedis, eh? Thank you.
I fellowship
Retractor
with you.
Fields. Oh, really? Retractor Fields,
I
5 cedis,
fellowship
please. Thank you.
you forgotten I fellowship with you. Or there's another
Retractor
part.
Papa Good, 5 cedis, please. Thank you. RP JD, please.
Who
Over
just
to
find
you.
me?
Thank you very much.
Who just find me?
Retractor Papa Good, you didn't fellowship with me when you came on the call. So please just send 5 cedis to our Amumu number. Thank you.
Just 5 cedis.
Yes, please, just 5. You can actually make it more. I know you can do better.
Okay.
Thank you very much. RPJD, please over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I'll add more fines to it. If you are a retractor on the call, abiding by the four-way test, if you learned something new on diabetes, 10 cedis. Please, treasurer should be on standby to receive alert. We are 26 on the call, so I expect to have 260 in the Momo account. 10 cedis per retractor. Okay. So some Momo are flying in. Right. Then we'll proceed to one presidential fine. Retractor emissary. For finding an RP, pay 20 cedis. I'll be generous with you today. 20 cedis. Hello, am I audible?
You're audible.
Okay, thank you. Retractor Papa Boat, kindly make a donation from your heart to the club. I don't want to quote a figure for you.
Okay, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Retractor Slim Shade. Today I'm being generous with you. I would have fined you 100 cedis, but I decided to do it 20. Next time I won't be so lenient. All right. We'll move on straight to attendance and we'll have Retractor Agnes to take the attendance for us today.
Thank you, RP. So we had 30 members on the call, 13 retractors from the Richards Club of Accra-Labone, 9 from Richards Club of Accra-Usu-Ari. We had 3 guests from the Richards Club of Accra-Labone, and then their names are guest Brenda, guest Naomi, and then guest Emmanuel. And we had visiting retractors joining us as well. Thank you, RP.
Okay, Retractor Agnes, is this the attendance from those who have filled the form or from the list
For
on the call?
RP, please both.
Okay, because I know there's one guest who wasn't acknowledged and she's been on the
Oh,
course.
oh,
The
sorry.
person of
My apologies.
Mercy
Sorry.
Kafui Ame. Okay, so kindly update that for me.
Okay, RP.
Okay, so we'll move on to reminders. Okay, so Retractor Emisa.
Thank you very much, RP. So I'm just giving a reminder for next week physical meeting, which is a cluster E meeting, which is happening at the Army Officers Mess. It's a cluster E joint physical meeting, and it's a talk on the Rotary Foundation month. That's the talk of the month or the theme of the month, which is the Rotary Foundation month. And we urge each and everyone to try and be there. It's a physical meeting, and the time is 6:30 p.m. on the 22nd of February. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. RP Namu. RP Namu. Okay. RP Delali, any announcement from Usuari for us?
No, please.
Okay, well noted. Okay, Grace, and we'll be getting ready to depart. So the road track Grace by Retractor Richard Usuari.
Thank you, RP. Please, can I be heard?
Yes, you can be heard loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Retractor presidents, fellow retractors and guests, can we please all unmute ourselves and say the retract prayer to grace together, please? Fellowship.
So give us the tune.
Okay. Oh God and giver of all good. Can you go?
Akwe voice in here. No, that's fine. That's fine.
Oh God,
Yeah, so we thank thee for our daily
food.
We rode darkness and rode right with.
Help us to serve thee
all our ways. Thank you, RP.
Thank you very much. RP Delali, kindly depart the house. Hello, RP Delali. Okay, I think RP is not on the call. Retractor Carol, kindly depart the house.
Thank you, RP. Partners in service, can we turn on our our cameras, if possible, and if you have a glass with you or a bottle of water, let us raise our glasses and toast to Rotarians, retractors, and interactors in the world wherever they meet. Thank you, RP.
To Rotarians, retractors, and guests wherever they may be, even in space. Just before we close off the meeting, I'll take the takings for tonight. I just realized my treasurer is not on the call. So Retractor Mabel, 5 CDs. Retractor Phyllis, 10 CDs. Retractor Andromeda, 15. Retractor Gifty, 5. Retractor Slim Shade, 30. Retractor Selasi, 10, and retractor Papa Boot 100, totaling 175. So it means that retractors are not abiding by the 4-week test because the fine alone is supposed to be 260. So let's kindly make, I know some of us may not have access to the number. It's in the chat box. Kindly take it up and make your link to the club. Thank you all for joining tonight's meeting. It's been a pleasure having you here. The meeting is officially closed.